Hello there, everyone. I'm here today because the other week I had finally finished Assassin's Creed Unity, and I thought I should give my final impressions on the game. And of course, the big question is after the sort of launch that it had, where there's been a lot of criticism about how the game was released, and all that criticism was certainly fair, and I had a lot of things that took me out of the game while I was playing. Not that the game was broken, really, but it was more of the immersiveness of Paris and playing in that world and that story being broken due to technical bugs and glitches, limitations, whatever. Um, the short answer is yeah, Assassin's Creed Unity is a pretty good Assassin's Creed game. Um, so where to begin? Where to begin? If you haven't really heard about the technical issues with this game, as I said, it's nothing that was game breaking. I'm not going to really go over everything too much because I discussed that a lot in the podcast that we did not too long ago with writer Garrett Golden and our special guest Gabriel Galliani. But the things that really I think took me out of the game the most was the pop-ins. 20, 30 yards away from you, characters are popping in like crazy. The camera doesn't even have to be moving. It can be a cinematic cutaway in the game that you're watching, and the camera's just sitting there, and clothing is popping on and off of the characters, and it's just a disaster in that respect. I mean, I know they wanted to have a lot of NPCs on the screen at once. And I know they were really trying to push the game's AI, but the AI for me seems to be practically non existent. That is an issue with Assassin's Creed Unity. They were hyping up AI, AI, AI. And, I didn't think that meant having more people on the screen. I thought that also meant that the enemies were going to be smarter. They don't really seem to be. They're going to follow the same basic routes so that you can pretty much figure out where they're going to be and when and plan your moves accordingly, as long as you take a minute or two to watch what's going on around you with eagle vision. So the AI is nothing to write home about, but man, that pop in is horrendous. I really don't know how they got that off the ground the way they did and thought it was acceptable. I mean, if you have to scale back how many NPCs are in the game, then do it. I'd rather have that and have the game be able to manage what I'm actually seeing on screen than to just have you throw a bunch of crap at me, Ubisoft, and just expect that I'm going to be okay just because there's so much going on, on the screen at once. When really, all I really want is a game that works. That's what I want. Um, you know, but again, it wasn't broken. Was it optimal? No, absolutely not. Another issue with Assassin's Creed Unity is the fact that the frames they're not pushing 30 frames per second. There was a big to do when this whole controversy erupted over the condition of the game prior to launch. And for anybody who hasn't heard what that whole fiasco was about, basically, Ubisoft came out prior to the release of the game and said there's going to be parity between Assassin's Creed Unity on the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. And of course, the internet erupted into madness. And at that point, I pretty much said, we don't really know the facts. We don't understand what was going on behind the scenes. So I'm going to sort of abstain from saying, Ubisoft, you're bad, bad sons of bitches. Okay. I mean, they said around E3 time of 2014, they were aiming for parity then. They wanted 1080p and 60 frames per second on both games. But apparently, even before then, however, someone else came out and said that allegedly the game was only running at like 9 frames per second within this last year, and they had to bump it up in order to make it perform the way that it did at launch. So yeah, when they said it's not going to be 1080p 60, but rather 900p and 30, everybody lost their goddamn collective minds. And the reason for that being is that they said, hey, look, the PlayStation 4 is a more powerful platform. it should be able to run better than the Xbox One. So then they came out and they're like, oh, well, the game is CPU bound and not GPU bound. If it was just graphics, we'd be able to render the game and have it run at 100 frames per second. But it's not just about the graphics. We're talking about lots of artificial intelligence. And the artificial intelligence, the game is bottlenecked. And we had to make lots of concessions, blah, 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 blah. Like, people don't care. I know I don't care. I would rather go back and play an Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3 game that works 100% of the time. Assassin's Creed Unity, unfortunately, most of the time struggles to maintain 30 frames per second. Again, the game's not broken. I can still play it. And most of the time, it runs decent. Not perfect, decent. It runs okay. It runs well enough, I suppose. But, you would think, being that we're in next generation, that wouldn't be good enough. But apparently that's where we're at. I don't even know what to say. There were a few occasions throughout the game where the game was running like a slideshow. And I apologize because I said I wasn't going to harp on this, but I realize I'm recording this, and not everybody sat down and read everything that I've wrote before for the website. Not everybody sat down and listened to the podcast. So each thing has to sort of be its own new thing. There's no excuse for the issues with this game. And a lot of people also complained about something that wasn't a technical issue, but rather a business decision made by Ubisoft, and that was to include really quite in your face microtransactions. How bad is it? It's not as bad as a lot of people are making it out to be. Are the microtransactions in your face? Yes, because if you don't have enough currency in the game in order to buy something, it's going to take you to a screen where you have an option to buy varying increments of the in-game currency. Ubisoft has packages available for this game up to $99.99 US. $100. That's $40 more than the game itself costs. And there was DLC planned. There was DLC planned, but they had to scrap it because I was talking with one of my friends, and he said, you know what I think? I think what they're doing is they've basically seen the response that Assassin's Creed Unity is getting. They don't think that a lot of people are going to support it, or at least enough people to justify continuing to make the DLC that was planned. So everybody is going to get the first DLC as free. Anybody who just actually opted for the season pass, which I wouldn't have recommended anyway, because this is Ubisoft. They are unpredictable, and they do often disappoint. But anybody who did get the season pass, Ubisoft decided to cut their losses, most likely, and say, here, have a free game instead. That will be more beneficial to us financially than continuing development of this DLC that we were going to provide for the season pass. And I tend to hear what my friend had to say, and I agree with him, and it makes perfect sense. It's hearsay. It's just an idea off the top of someone's head, but I tend to think it falls in line with what likely happened. These companies are not out there to lose money. They are there to make money. And if they have to cut their losses because something went wrong, even if it was their fault, they're gonna do it. So enough about the technical stuff. I got that out of the way because, yeah, the game wasn't broken. There were a couple of times the game looked like a slideshow, but whatever. It is what it is. For the most part, I did get to play Assassin's Creed. I didn't feel like the game was ruined by any stretch of the imagination. And there is a lot of hyperbole out there, but it is an unacceptable situation. So how is the game itself? It's good for an Assassin's Creed game. Is it better than the previous entry, Black Flag? No, I don't think so. It doesn't even come close in my mind. I know there are some people that are just like, man, I love this game. It's probably my favorite Assassin's Creed yet. I don't know. I thought Edward in Assassin's Creed 4 was a far more engaging character than Arno is. Arno, the main character in this game, he's actually quite charismatic, and he's actually a lot better than what Ubisoft provided earlier this year with the main character in Watch Dogs by far. Arno's not uninteresting, but his backstory is basically his story is more of a revenge plot sort of a thing, and I don't really identify with him or what happened to him or what he's going through. Basically, something happened early in life. It scarred him. It made him a troublemaker. And eventually he ends up being in the wrong place at the wrong time, and he has no choice but to follow the assassin's order and join them and sort of fulfill his destiny. And that's it. Bada bing, bada bang, bada boom. There is, some other stuff happening. There's a little bit of a love story going on with a character named Elise, who is also very charismatic and is also very interesting to watch. I wasn't watching any of the story elements of the game, just saying, oh, I'm so bored. But at the same time, I didn't really care about much of the stuff that was happening in the game. I thought the story behind Edward in Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag was much more interesting. And just the setting of the game overall. There's something about tropical climate, sailing a pirate ship, engaging in naval battles, especially the naval battles. It really, for me, made the Assassin's Creed franchise feel different, fresh. I mean, I had only played the original Assassin's Creed, and I haven't gotten around to playing Assassin's Creed 2 or Brotherhood or Revelations or Assassin's Creed 3 yet. They're back there on my gaming rack, but I haven't gotten a chance to play them. But I can tell that the game has evolved over time until it reached this point with Black Flag. And this game sort of scales back a little bit to the original gameplay style from Assassin's Creed 1. Plus, there's stuff going on where you can level up your character. And of course, the leveling up. I mentioned the microtransactions before. One thing that I really wanted to say but kind of glossed over was the fact that, yes, the microtransactions are sort of in your face, but they're not necessary. You can still play Assassin's Creed Unity just like any other Assassin's Creed game. You're not going to have all your abilities up front. Those are going to be earned as you progress through the game. Same thing with the currency that you earn throughout the game. As long as you do what's necessary in order to have your character earn more money as time goes on, it's all normal stuff. It's not like you're grinding just for the sake of grinding. Do the necessary missions, do what you have to do, and the money's going to start rolling in as you get further and further in the game. You'll get new gear, which will make you less vulnerable to attacks, that will make you more stealthy. So the microtransactions are really just there to prey on the weak and stupid. I'm sorry, if you've purchased a microtransaction package, there's really not much more to say than what the hell are you doing? Are you literally paying a company to give you free? Well, not free. You're paying a company to give you something that you should be playing the game for to earn. Why are you going to shell out $60 for a game that you wanted to play just to give the company more money so you don't have to play it? For Christ's sakes, there's actually an option in the microtransactions to unlock areas of the map. Now, as you know, with any Ubisoft game, it's not just an Assassin's Creed thing anymore. In an Ubisoft game, you see this map. It's distorted. You can't see anything. You can't see events. You can't see locations. You have to find a tower or something similar. You have to climb it. And then, and only then, will you see the immediate area and be able to sort of tackle what's ever there. You can pay to not have to go through that. It is bullshit. If you want to talk about something that's game-breaking, that is game-breaking. But at least people have to choose to break the experience. And apparently this must be working out well for Ubisoft, because they're only becoming more and more heavy-handed with this as time goes on. There is something that they did kind of weasel into the game, though, that really frustrated me to no end. And it's the fact that there are treasure chests that you can come across in the game. And when you try to pick lock them or open them or whatever the case may be, you get a little message that says, sorry, this can only be accessed if you are using the Assassin's Creed Unity mobile app. This is a physical uh, item in the game. There's a chest right there. Click, and it doesn't open. It tells you to use your mobile device. Now, having a companion app is not anything new for the Assassin's Creed franchise. Again, deferring back to Black Flag, there was there was a mobile app, but it made sense. You were a captain of a bunch of pirates and multiple ships. While you were away from the game, you could whip out your mobile app and you could command your ships to go on certain routes and gain more supplies for you, money and supplies for ships and whatnot. It made sense. Yes, you could buy the stuff that you would have needed in order to upgrade your ships instead of earning them in the game, but it didn't felt necessary. And I dare say that the mobile app from the last game, Black Flag, was actually kind of cool in that respect. I'm a captain 24/7. I don't have to be sitting behind the controller in front of the TV in order to command my fleet. I can do it whenever the hell I damn please. And it was fun. But the thing is in this game, what you do is you have in this companion app, I had to check it out. I had to see what it was all about so I could report it to you. There is, kind of the in-game map of Paris that you see. And there's lots of different little activities. And it's just kind of mind-numbing, boring bullshit. Like, you have to decipher glyphs on buildings. And how you do that is you click on the location on the map with your finger. The building comes up into focus, and then you have to double tap on the building, and then there's this like field that sort of goes around the building, and it temporarily reveals where these glyphs are, and you have to find them amongst the building, which can be kind of difficult because you're more or less looking at the entire building architecture. So those symbols that you see, the glyphs, can become a little lost in the details. So that's the challenge. You can only activate that field to find those glyphs around the building so many times. And if you can't find all the glyphs by the time you run out, then you have to start all over again. It's just boring. There's no point to it. There's other stuff, but it's not even really worth mentioning. It's just, who cares? And of course, you could buy more bullshit microtransaction stuff from there. Ubisoft has to get away from that. And I know it's a big subject here, the microtransactions, but if you want to prey on the weak and stupid, I don't agree with it, but I can't stop you from doing that. But what the hell? You're literally going to put physical stuff in my game that I can be walking around in the plain vanilla version of your game and tell me I can't access it unless I go to your mobile app? Insane. Stop that shit, Ubisoft. Just stop it. So can't really identify with the characters. The story is kind of interesting. It's kind of blah, though. I mean, it's interesting enough on its own. If you've been playing the Assassin's Creed franchise at this point, it's nothing special. I think the story as told in Assassin's Creed 4 was much better. And I've said that. So take it for what it's worth. Basically, if you are a fan of this franchise, then you're going to enjoy what you're going to see. That is, if you're not already tired of the gameplay. And the gameplay is something that's really quite interesting because in many respects, it feels like Assassin's Creed. But in some other respects, they've really refined the gameplay experience. And this is really something that I have to commend the developers for, because before, you pretty much had to jump, 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 jump. It was sort of kind of each little jump was sort of its own separate thing. Now, you hold down your run button, and then you hold the jump button, and he'll sort of, parkour up a building on his own. It doesn't work 100% of the time. It's a little bit clunky. And by that, I mean, you're going to get stuck on certain things. Maybe you feel like, oh, I should be able the jumping to, you get hung up at times. And sometimes I even found myself semi-trapped within the architecture of the buildings themselves. On another note, coming down from a building is much more improved, even more so than going up. Before, you really did have to pick and choose where you wanted your character to drop, and you had to click the fall button again and again and again and again. It was a very slow and tedious process to get down from somewhere, but now he parkours down the side of buildings like you wouldn't believe. It's insane. It's great. And it's something that I really want to see. I want to see that fluidity in future Assassin's Creed games. One thing that they decided to implement this time around, though, that I wasn't really a fan of is the whole stealth system. And I really like that now you actually have a crouch button, and that works okay. Sometimes I couldn't quite figure out, like, okay, now I'm stuck in the crouch position. Let me press the button again to stand up, and it wouldn't always work. It was kind of finicky. And I didn't feel like it was user error. It felt like, okay, the game's not really doing what I want it to do. I'm pushing the button, hello, respond. That wasn't exactly the case 100% of the time. More troubling, though, was that you actually have a button now, sort of similar to, I guess I'll liken it to the Gears of War games, where you have a cover system where you get behind something, you press the cover button, and cling, you get clung to the object. And when you get clung to the object, it's great if all you want to do is move left to right. You can move left to right, but unfortunately, if as soon as you want to kind of go around a turn, you're not going to be able to do it. You have to come out of cover, go to where you want to go, and then go back in the cover again, which does leave you exposed. And maybe if this was so many years ago, before like accurate cover systems, fluid cover systems were actually a thing, I could maybe forgive the developers for that. But this is kind of amateur bullshit at this point. We've got cover systems that allow you to go around objects and turns and whatever, and it's not possible in Unity. So while it's the first implementation of this in the series, and it's promising, it wasn't quite what it should have been, and led to a bit more frustration than what I would have cared for. So yeah, the gameplay for the most part feels really good. It's definitely got its quirks though. So yeah. One thing I have to say though, the absolute star of this game, because the story is okay, the controls have their high points and their low points, which kind of makes it sound like right now, just as far as the game, forgetting glitches and microtransactions, it's a pretty fun yet average game. But the one thing that sort of really is the star in this game is Paris. Paris looks freaking immaculate. The developers did an amazing job designing this city. From what I understand, it's fairly accurate to where the major locations are supposed to be on like a real map of Paris. Of course, I'm sure that the city blocks and everything like that are sort of made up. But the amount of detail in this game is remarkable. It's remarkable. It looks amazing. I have not seen anything from the franchise today, and I have watched a lot of videos and seen pictures of the other various entries in the Assassin's Creed games. Nothing looks quite as good as Paris does in this building, not just on the outside, not just the building architecture, but even inside the buildings. There are a lot of buildings that you're able to kind of run through now. There's a lot of buildings that have interiors that you're able to access and run through, and even those have immaculate detail. I mean, Ubisoft, the development teams working on this game, and there were about 10 teams over the course of 4 years working on this game. Golf clap for you, because man, I did not want to leave Paris even after I beat the game. I just wanted to run around and soak it all in some more. So as far as locations go, and locations have always been one of the major selling points of Assassin's Creed, and being able to explore them, Paris is almost second to none. I still prefer the tropical setting and everything in Black Flag, and I know a lot of people really, really, really love the setting of Italy in Assassin's Creed 2, but this is really nothing to scoff at. It's just a shame that the rest of the game is just sort of okay. It's decent. Again, it's as I said before. If you're a fan of the Assassin's Creed franchise, this game's for you. You're going to enjoy it as long as you're not already sick to death of doing the same repetitive missions over and over again. There are a few missions here in the game that sort of mix things up a bit. For the most part, though, you're going to be doing more or less the same old, same old. So that's really it. That's my impressions about Assassin's Creed Unity. Should you buy it right now? I wouldn't. I know Ubisoft is still patching the game. They just released one, I believe, prior to Thanksgiving, which had about 300 fixes in the patch file. Holy hell. And it's not acceptable what they've done, so I wouldn't support the game on day one. If you don't have the game yet, wait till it goes down in price a little bit, because it's still technically wonky. It still has its issues. And it's more or less a fun Assassin's Creed game, but, nothing that really excels past anything that we've ever seen. So make up your own mind, I guess. I have played the game. This is my opinion. And that's really it for today. I say it's a good game. It's worth playing and probably worth owning, especially after they fix the games, but just not right now. Give it a month or two, and you'll find the game for a bit cheaper on sale. And then, you might be able to justify a $40, $45 price point as opposed to $60. Anyway, that's it for now. As you can see below, I'm Mike Zupan from BitesizeImpressions.com. I'll see you next time I finish a game.